got 152 yards. Should be just a nice, comfortable 9-iron for him. They're going to go nuts when he hits this thing.
That's dirt.
Yo. Welcome in, golf fans, to the Preferred Lines podcast. This episode, we will be recapping the 2025 PGA Championship, a crowning achievement, third major championship, of course, for Scotty Scheffler. And then we're going to talk a little bit of Colonial Country Club, break down this week's Charles Schwab Challenge. My name is Joe Idoni at Tour Picks is the place you can find me on Twitter. That right there is John Hasselbauer at PGA Tout. John, good evening. Welcome back to the show. What's going on, brother?
It's good. Feeling nice and comfy in this seat next to you now after all the intros last week. It's good to be back with you. Plenty to talk about from the PGA Championship. I really like the Charles Schwab Challenge. I think it's a good course and a good test and a lot of history. Hopefully it doesn't get overshadowed being the week after a major, but decent, not great field, decent field. So maybe the sickos are the only ones who get excited for this, but I identify as sicko. I am excited.
We identify as sickos around here. That's all good. Yeah, excited. It's just kind of the nature of golf season, right? One stacked on top of the other. There's no rest for the weary. I popped the banner up on the bottom. As always, got to mention this show proudly brought to you by the folks over at Rotoballer PGA. Promo code there is Lines to get you 10% off any subscription over there. We'd absolutely, myself, would love to have you a part of the team. If you have any interest whatsoever, feel free to DM me, ask me any questions. I'm in the Discord channel over there, as well as multiple articles posted this week already. I've got my top 10 power rankings out for Colonial. I've got the core 4 in terms of a DFS article that I'm helping my boy Joe nicely out a little bit this week. John, you've got everything you need to know about Colonial Country Club piece out as well. Articles are posted. Now we're ready to talk about it. First on the agenda tonight, Scotty Scheffler, man. Guy's pretty good, right?
You know, it was actually put to question whether or not he was the best player in the world. No, it wasn't put into question if he was the best player in the world. His PGA Tour Player of the Year status, he was number 2 going into this week. And now last week was a very clear reminder that he is much better than everybody else at the game of golf at the moment.
Much better. A dominant performance. He seems to always be very in control, when things are not going great, which happens to any player throughout their round. And when things are going great, he absolutely is pedal to the floor and steps on the gas and accelerates and creates these leads. And he creates this intimidation factor that feels insurmountable for opponents at times. I think you see a lot of guys press toward the end of their rounds, like Rahm and Bryson, and they know that Scotty has birdieable holes coming up, and the boogeyman is lurking in a group right behind them, and he struck again. I think, obviously a great achievement for him. Struggled a little bit earlier in the year with the injury, so kind of nice to see him back on top. It's 2 in a row for him, going for the three-peat at this point still, unless I've missed some late-breaking news in the last hour, is still the prohibitive favorite to win the Charles Schwab Challenge. He's probably going to do it, right?
I'm so intimidated by Scotty this week. I'm sure we'll get into that in a little bit, but it's the weeks where nobody could blame them for skipping and they go to play anywhere, where I feel like that player is the most dangerous, because if he was a late withdrawal, it would be like, yeah, okay, he's celebrating. But it's going to be a homecoming for Scotty, just as you could loosely say that Craig Ranch was a homecoming for him. So he loves playing in Texas. He's always played well in Texas. I don't think he's ever played poorly in Texas. So he's going to be a very tough out this week. I think last week kind of illustrated again that when Scotty's healthy and hand injury behind him, it's the fact that he can make birdie on the hardest of holes because he's such a better iron player than all the other great players in the world right now. And at the same time, he can scramble for par from anywhere. So if he gets himself into trouble, he just advances it near the green and he's going to get up and down. So the putter has been figured out. With Scotty with the spider is just an entirely different final boss to defeat. And, I was naive to think that there was a mini changing of the guard with Rory McIlroy going into last week. I could not have been more wrong. So, it is what it is. We'll try again this week and hope for the best against Scotty.
Mm.
Oh, I'm
All
back.
right. We'll do. We will get booted back up eventually. You there, buddy?
I can hear you now. I don't know whose internet it is.
Yeah, I think it's definitely my internet. It's just popping in and out. I switched over to a different Wi-Fi network. I hope that we're okay now. Apologize for the difficulties, everybody. What happens when you kind of run a live show. I think everything that I caught there that you said about Scotty is spot on. It's so interesting to me because he's so technical and robotic in many ways in terms of off the tee, the whole stuff with the grip, his practice routine, the iron play, and then he gets around the greens, and it's so underrated. Artistic he can be, and like thoughtful and magician like, and just pull things off that the other guys aren't able to pull. The dominance is there. Let's do the thing that everybody's doing and play over under career total majors. I'm gonna set a line at 6.5. The pessimist in me says I would take the under just because I know historically how finite these runs can be. Where do you sit on that? If I gave you the over under 6.5 career majors,
I don't want to be prisoner of the moment, but I mean, I think I have to go over. Like, he's doing Tiger trajectory things. He's not Tiger yet. He probably never will be Tiger. My worry with Scotty would be the longevity. Like, can you swing the way he swings post your prime athletic career? And does that shrink your window to you've got to pick up all your majors in the next 10 to 15 years?
What do you mean by that? Like how hard, or the movement, or the back, or what concerns you there?
Yeah, like the Scotty shuffle, the way his legs are all over the place, and he's just using a lot of like limber athleticism. Like Scotty's not going to swing this way for 30 years or whatever it is, right? Like at a certain point, he has to do a Tiger thing and like modify his swing, reinvent his swing. Will probably be great after he figures that out too. But that would be my only cause for concern, and that's what I always go back to when I talk about like this same question for a Colin Morikawa. I think he will be a factor for like into his 50s at majors because he's just always going to have this swing and this iron play that he leans on forever. So I like his longevity, and whatever we long his like futures at, I'm long-term high on Colin. But Scotty can pick up a lot of majors over the next decade, I think. So I would still go over there.
How do you think Quail Hollow did as the host of a major championship? It caught a lot of flack earlier in the week. I was hopeful that it would fight back. Only one player bested 6 under par for the week. I thought there were some spots where, I've got to give them credit because they were able to get the greens extremely firm. There were some spots where if you missed long, I remember there was like a Keith Mitchell chip on, I think, Friday. And he hit it basically a yard onto the green. I thought it was going to go in, and it looked like it was going to stop next to the pin, and it rolled a good 30 yards additionally, all the way to the front of the green, down a hill. This place really kind of showed some teeth. I don't know if it was just maybe a little tiresome for us and where it came in the schedule and how we've seen it so many times. And, it didn't have a whole lot of excitement level to it from being on the grounds. It didn't seem like the fans, there was a lot of juice to me personally. You have that feature pairing of Rory, Scotty, and Xander. And I watched on Friday afternoon. There was like didn't seem like anybody was following them. So I don't know what it was, but it just felt like it got off to a very slow start. But how did you think the golf course did aside from how the tournament played out?
Yeah, it's interesting because Quail Hollow to me is just another version of Torrey Pines where it rewards the same style of play. There's more there's more variability to Quail Hollow than Torrey Pines, where Torrey's just like linear, the same thing kind of over and over again, but pretty views. And Quail, you get a good mix of like you got some drivable par fours and there's water in play, and there's like different types of hazards hole to hole, which I appreciate. It's just the fact that it's not new and they didn't bring anything new here. It wasn't like a rerouting that they did or a redesign of a certain hole or something new with the rough. The only thing new that they did was overseed it, which I think was kind of to the course's detriment and made it play a little less, I don't know. It still played hard, but it could have played even harder if it was like a pure Bermuda throughout situation. I think that might have opened it up to more of your like Bermuda specialists who might have had some sort of a sneaky edge where, okay, we're playing a major on a Bermuda course. That's something new. So at the end of the day, we got another modern major venue, which tends to produce exactly the type of leaderboard that we ended up seeing, which is your Scotty, Bryson, Rahm, those types of players again, which is good. I mean, as a fan, you want to see the best players contend. You want to stack leaderboard and you want good players, competing against each other, and maybe a little bit of your like Davids with the Goliaths where you have like an Alex Noren who shows up. Like it had all of those elements, but it lacked like a defining moment. Like I won't look back at this event and be like, that was the time that this happened. It will kind of be remembered as the Scotty runaway in a long list of Scotty runaways.
Do you think it seems like I don't know if it's the PGA Championship or the PGA of America setup, but it does seem like a concerted effort, at least the last couple of years, to pick golf courses. It seems like they're picking them starting with the premise of like, how can we make sure that we engineer like 3 of the best players in the world there on Sunday, whether it was Valhalla, whether it was Oak Hill. The only one that really they kind of threw a little bit of a wrinkle that I think was more of a U.S. Open-y type task was Southern Hills. And Mito freaking Pereira gagged that thing away. And I don't know if they look back on that and they were like, we want more of a very straightforward test that is going to reward the best ball strikers. If it's less exciting for the sickos and architectural people that want to see these very unique courses, so be it. We want to get views on Sunday. Do you kind of side with that, or where do you stand on that sort of take and course selection for the PGA of America?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, I'm okay with it. My biggest gripe would be that I want a major to feel special, and Quail Hollow, this felt like we just saw the Wells Fargo Championship 2 weeks in a row, and this was like the Quail Hollow that I'm used to seeing. So, but the difference is you get the crowds, and there is a different atmosphere. And I think to your point, there was a lot of Twitter videos being shared of the crowds not being that full and stands not being packed. Some of that is a little, I think, overblown. Like if you've ever been to a golf tournament in person, the crowds are massive around the leading groups and the popular groups, especially in the early days. And then, you're going to have pockets where like, nobody's following the guy who just birdied 5 holes in a row on the other side of the course because they didn't realize that he's doing what he's doing, and you have to run across the course to find that guy. So there's going to be gaps in like the crowds, but it's the PGA of America's job to find venues that will, eventize the event. And if I compare this, I know this wasn't a PGA Championship, but if I compare this to LACC, where you had the US Open, very interesting course, not logistically possible to have big crowds there. And then that takes away from the atmosphere, which is something that you could palpably feel on the telecast. So give me atmosphere and crowds over intriguing architectural setup and an interesting leaderboard every time. I think all of that is good. My only gripe would just be that this is a PGA Tour venue, and I've seen it a lot, so it didn't feel new this week. But all in all, I would give Quail Hollow a B+.
Okay. Biggest surprise for you of the week from the PGA Championship?
I mean, it's got to be Rory.
Yeah.
At least, like, selfishly, it's Rory because I go all in on the guy, and he
Right.
sneaks his way through the cut. I think the answer is definitively Rory because he was a co-favorite here. Every single box you could check for this guy separating and being great this week, he checked every single one of them. I mean, granted, you might have said, how does Rory respond his first major after breaking a drought and winning the career Grand Slam? We don't know. But he was not himself. He was dodging the media.
Yeah.
He was not hitting fairways. He was a liability off the tee. And he just routinely goes to this course every single year. You've never seen him play this course like that. And you saw him describe it as this is just another Wells Fargo setup. So I'm left like completely flabbergasted at how Rory could look that like hapless and not like himself all 4 days of that tournament.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on Rory. I also think the biggest surprise for me was I like what Quail Hollow gave us. And I know that's going to be an unpopular take, but only one player finishing better than 10 under par. I think most people would have predicted it was going to be much more of a PGA Tour-esque setup than the results that we got. And you look, and even I think like Brandel made some comments about how this is just basically the PGA Tour setup that we see every week, you know, between the overseeding and these guys that tear up the PGA Tour every week. We're going to step in here and do well. And the reality is the guys that have been the most dominant players on the PGA Tour this year did not play well. Rory was 47th. Morikawa was 50th. These are the guys that missed the cut. Justin Thomas, number 5 in the world. Ludwig Åberg, number 6 in the world. Hideki, number 7 in the world. Henley, number 8 in the world. Straka, number 9. Lowry, number 10. All missed the cut. So if the argument was that this was something that was set up to favor and the PGA Tour players were better prepared than the LIV guys, and this was just going to be very much like the Wells Fargo Championship, I think Quail fought back more than people are giving that a little bit of credit for. I think ultimately from a player standpoint, you're right. Rory, the biggest surprise, skipping the media stuff. I don't quite know what to make of it. I feel like I would have a better opinion. And I know the people, and I talked to some of them who were in the media center, and they were upset. Many of them weren't happy. And I wrote down this quote, and this was a tweet from Jason Sobel. And Sobel, I like him or hate him, I like Jason Sobel. He's been covering the PGA Tour, I think, as long as anybody and in the media centers. And this is what he said on Twitter. Last year when I was at Pebble, following his pre-tournament press conference, bear with me, it's a little bit of a long-winded tweet, but Rory stood up in front of a group of reporters for 45 minutes and spoke about the need for PGA Tour players to be more accessible. He had just been to an F1 race and saw how many interviews the drivers give both directly before and after their races. There was some clarity. He told us that golfers should hold themselves to similar standards, especially the superstars. Personally, I've never been one to get annoyed when a player decides not to speak with us after a round. I don't need to hear from each player every day. If Rory wants to take a day or two off when he plays poorly, that's his prerogative. Tiger also did that, though very infrequently. Tiger never, ever went 4 consecutive tournament days without speaking afterwards. He knew that it was his responsibility as the face of the game, and Rory knows that too. In fact, he said it himself. I think he summed that up really well. It was disappointing for a lot of people. I think he was upset. I don't know what to make of it. I don't know if he's going through something personally, if he was upset about the whole Drivergate situation, What did you make of the media circus that has kind of surrounded him that he brought upon himself by just ignoring everyone?
Yeah. Well, it's Sobel too who broke the news about the non-conforming driver, which
Yeah.
was a very polarizing subject on Twitter. I'd never seen such varying takes of this is nothing, this is a nothing burger, this happens all the time, to how could they not tell us this, and what the media is not doing enough to get us this information sooner. Um, I maybe I'm not understanding what exactly goes into a driver becoming non-conforming. It seems like it seems as simple as like you hit a ball enough, it dents to a certain point where it's not conforming anymore, which to me almost seems like if a player is playing a driver with indentations in it, then it should not, it's to their benefit to get a new driver. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I know they're precious that they're gamers and like they don't want to change it. I totally get that. But anyway, at the end of the day, it sounded like Scotty faced the exact same issue where he had a non-conforming driver before and talked about it openly, and it was not a big deal. And he said this happens all the time. His only issue with it is that they test a certain sample of like a third of the field every week, and they should be testing everybody. But it seemed like this such a nothing thing that I don't understand why Rory wouldn't just say it. But I also think back to the story. I think it was the Players. I think it was, no, maybe the week after the Players. There was a story of Rory hired an Uber driver to drive his gamer from his club down to whatever course they were playing, and he paid him like $1,000 just to get his gamer. So clearly Rory cares a lot about the gamer. And I guess it could have gotten overblown to be misconstrued as Rory was cheating before this because he was playing a non-conforming driver, and is his Masters win even legitimate? And it got like blown way more out of proportion than what it actually should have been. But these are the things that happen when you don't do the media obligations.
Yeah.
You allow this groundswell of conversation and speculation to go rampant when you could just answer 2 questions after a round of like, hey, what happened here?
Yeah. I totally agree. It's funny. The rule seems, my understanding of it is like it's the thickness of the metal on the face of the driver that wears down over time. And as it gets thinner, it's easier to control and the ball goes farther. I only know this a little bit because I had like an M2 3-wood. I was trying to get a new 3-wood like 2 years ago. And this thing was like 8 years old. And I went to a fitting to the guy up in Jupiter who's really, really good. He fits a bunch of tour pros up there. He's awesome. I love this guy. He fit me for my driver, for my irons. He's the man. I was trying out 3-woods, and then he's like, hit yours. And I was hitting mine, and it was going so much further. And he was like, that thing is red hot. Do not get rid of that thing. And like 6 months later, a crack right in the middle of it. So it was right on the fringe. But it sounds like these guys know and understand that there's like a lifespan on these clubs. I agree with them that test one, you need to test them all. Now it's like, it is almost as like they can gamify this, and like he got tested on what, Tuesday? So why do you have it if you know it's hot? And they probably have a pretty good understanding. It sounds like Scotty knew this was coming. It from his post-round presser, it sounded like he's had it for a while, and he knew as soon as they test it, I'm gonna need a backup. Why bring it out? Test an old one. Bring it out on Thursday morning. They're not going to test you on the first tee. I don't know. I think a lot of it was made of nothing, but you're 100% correct in that he could have nipped it all in the bud and said what Scotty Scheffler did and said it's part of the rules. Here's my take on it. Here's how I think we could make it better. Let's move on. End of story. He's let it continue to build, and people are spinning this into all these other additional narratives, which is frankly a bad look for him. And the fact that he didn't play well, skipping the media stuff, that's, you don't want to get on the wrong side of these guys in that room. And it seems like after being everyone overwhelming support for him, he's kind of turned the page a little bit, and it's something just seems like he didn't have to do.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. I mean, there's got to be more to it than surface levels. So
yeah,
the next time, I don't know the next event he's going to play, but It might be in Canada, but I'm very interested the next time he does, sit behind in front of a microphone, what he's going to say about this, because it's just all the entire week, the entire 4 days are head scratching to me. There's something that not meets the eye going on with Rory.
Let's do a quick credit check before we get on to the Charles Schwab Challenge. I want to give some credit. I want to actually give some credit to Jon Rahm for a couple of reasons. Love the way he felt back on Sunday. I thought, and I watched the majority of his press conference before the tournament started. And here's a guy who really took that very seriously. He paused before nearly every question and tried to give a thoughtful and honest answer. He was very open with the media. Seemed to be in a good mood, like pleasant, which we normally see for Jon Rahm. Made that run, and I know a lot of people have said this, I really think he caught a couple of tough breaks down the stretch. The putt on 13, I still don't know how it missed. The one that dove at the very end. Missed a short birdie putt on 14 after going into the bunker, driving it onto the green, got himself in a bad spot. Like the shot he hit on 15 off like a downhill lie with a 4-iron. Like Colt Knost was in awe that he was even able to hit the green with that shot. Trickled it off the back edge, couldn't make birdie there, kind of crumbled down the stretch, but he sat in it. And that's what I appreciate. And that's what I want to give him credit for, is he sat up there with the media and sat in it and said, I'm disappointed. I'm a little bit embarrassed of myself. Here's how I can get better. Here's what I can take from this into the next event. And here's my perspective on everything. That I'm a professional golfer. I've got kids at home that don't care. It felt really good to be back in contention and get those kind of juices flowing. So credit to Jon Rahm, when I think a lot of us, myself included on this show, kind of wrote him off, and it didn't completely. We always knew the talent level was there, but we're like, show us something, because you finishing 7th in Korea, I don't care. You finishing 5th in Mexico, I don't care. Either win on live or show up in a major championship, and he did that. So give a little bit of credit on my end to Jon Rahm. You got anyone for this week for me?
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. I think also Rahm's finish was the finish of a man who is good on money. So like, regardless what he gets paid for a 2nd or 8th place finish, he's good. And he took the aggressive line on every tee shot and every approach when he knew, like, I just got a birdie every hole, or I got a hole out here. So I think that's that kind of like fearlessness of, I came here to win and I don't care what result it is if I don't win. And it made his finish look a little bit worse, but he doesn't care about that. So he deserves some credit for sure. I'll give like just a tiny bit of credit to Joaquin Niemann, because he's been a fun punching bag to say like, oh, he's best player on live, but he'll never finish top 15 in a major. His top 15 finish was the absolute definition of a backdoor. So I'm giving it with a little bit of like a grain of salt here. But Niemann reminds me a lot of Homa a few years ago, where it was like every indication here, even like your mental fortitude is telling me you should do well in majors, and you just give it enough time and it will come. But I was never going to bet Niemann until I'd seen it. And again, it was a big backdoor, but he played very well on Sunday. He had one bad round in that event, and the last 3 rounds were very good. So it was a good effort by Niemann. I was thinking about betting him going in, and he suited the course well. So now next up for him is Oakmont, and I think he will be probably a trendy pick, because he's going to continue to play well on live. So if you think about major futures, even at the Open, I kind of like him. Niemann is a name to watch that I think he could get bet down from the number he is at right now before the next major.
Yeah, Oakmont's going to be another like big boy park, right? Last 6 majors, I think, have been won by either Bryson, Rahm, Scheffler, or Xander. I think I'm right on that. So the big four are winning all of them. And it just feels like everyone else has so much room to kind of catch up and try to close that gap if they can. Shout out Niemann for a T8. Shout out top 10 McCarthy. Good stuff, Denny. Finishing in the top 10 for the first time in a major. 3 out of 4 rounds under par. kudos, my man. Keep digging in the dirt. All right, let's talk a little Colonial. John, you're the course preview guy. Drop me some knowledge. Give me some specs. Give me the lowdown on Colonial Country Club, the annual host of the Charles Schwab Challenge.
Yes, Colonial, hidden gem in many
It
ways,
is.
like not a signature event and doesn't always attract the best field or the field it deserves to attract. One of the longest standing events on the PGA Tour, continuous year over year, and one of the most beloved venues on tour. Everybody who plays this event just raves about the course, and now it's an even better version of itself after the restoration that was completed in 2023. So last year was our first view of a new but really restored to old Colonial. And I love that restoration for so many reasons. You look back 10.
Who did it? Was it Gil?
It was Gil. Yeah, it was the same
Yeah.
crew that did Southern Hills. And it was like the year after they were finished with Southern Hills or whatever it was, like very soon after they moved on to this project next. You look back long term, and this was an event that the plotters like looked forward to and circled in the same way they would at like a Sedgefield or a Wiley or a Harbor Town. It's like if you're Webb Simpson, like these are, or Kevin Kisner, like these are my opportunities to win because it's short here. And over time and technology kind of passed this course by, and people just kind of started realizing you can hit it over the trees. You can cut corners. It's actually not that penal in the rough. It's really hard to hold these fairways, so just try to hit it as close to the green as possible. And it completely lost its identity, and it started to get a little bit harder to predict because the history was telling you you're supposed to be accurate here, and then the new wave of speed chasing post-COVID kind of changed what this course was. And then right on the spot, they said, okay, let's restore this thing. We've lost the identity. And now the course looks awesome. It's been built to kind of defend itself against that. And you saw a return to the like reward for accuracy last year, which I wasn't quite sure if we would get that or not. And I was happy to see that that's what we got. So it should be more of an emphasis once again on finding fairways, iron play, mid irons, less than 200 yards, and very firm, very, very firm and fast bent grass greens. So that's something to jack up in the model this week. I have no explanation for how Davis Riley did what he did last year. I'm just going to dismiss it and pretend it didn't happen. I was on Keegan last year, and I thought he had a real chance and that Davis Riley would realize who he was at some point and come back down to earth, and he never did. So kudos to him.
He's on one of those little runs again. You mentioned the firm, like the new greens that they did. Greens and regulation rate was down a good bit last year. Obviously, the firmness of the new grass being planted. I also think that they talked a little bit about the restoration video that I saw about how the build up, like right on the edges of the greens, had kind of gotten so much over the years from just sand and turf being consistently topped up there by the members. So they try to restore that to its original condition. You know, leads to some runoffs, makes the target areas particularly smaller. One of the things that I really looked at was like, it's just a really difficult ball striking test, because not only are the fairways pretty narrow, but just beyond them, there's a good bit of trouble. There's a good bit of trees. And then you have the Bermuda, which I see they did not choose to overseed, which makes it patchy, which makes it gnarly, which makes it unpredictable, which is the kind of stuff that we know gives these players fits. You heard all the guys talk about mud balls and how much it pissed them off. That's because, like Scotty Scheffler said, they spent their entire life trying to repeat inputs to get the same output, right? They want to put the same thing in and get the same thing out every single time. And Bermuda rough does not ever give you that. It almost always either comes out low and spinny or high and thin or whatever you want to call it. It's just very tough to predict, which makes it a very difficult test for them. I wanted to bring up my BetSperts model. I will share it onto the screen in just a second here. Let's pull it up. Boom, here we go. Tackling Colonial. This is my top 10 model, John. I know that you've got one out there as well, but of course, Scotty Scheffler ranks like number one in everything. He's finished second, third, second, I believe, in the last 3 years here. He is $3,700 more than the next highest priced player on DraftKings this week. Pretty shocking stuff. Daniel Berger, number 2 in my model. Aaron Rye, 3. Harmon, 4. Fleetwood, 5. Spawn, 6. Glover, 7. Rico Richard Hoey at number 8. Emiliano Grillo, former champion here before the renovation, at 9. JT Poston, off an incredible, solid week. I think he led the field last week at Quail Hollow in both approach and putting. And you've got Tom Hoagie, who's always a factor there at 11. I looked at strokes gained. Where is it? This ball striking one I wanted to pull up because I wanted to look at ball striking on courses that are difficult to gain strokes on approach, difficult to gain strokes off the tee. So I kind of combined those two things in. I filtered everything out. Scheffler, Hoey, Yu, Spawn, Damon, McIntyre, Mitchell. Those are the guys that rate out best there. Putting, of course, factored in bent grass greens. In the putting stuff. I see BetSperts has a lot of new stuff coming out too. The link, if you want to tap on the promo code for 25% off, is Lines, by the way. That helps both John and I out, and it gets you access to all this software, gets you access to our models each and every week. But new, really cool tools coming. I saw Ryan Noonan and Ron Close do a pod earlier today showcasing some of those tools. They're going to start to have filtering data for preferred lines. They're going to start to really dissect additional columns in terms of weather. They've added new architects that you can filter in stats for. So big things coming for the team over at BetSperts. I'm happy to be with them. Like I mentioned, promo code LINES to get yourself 25% off any sub there. It is well worth it just for the modeling software to build whatever you want. If you're playing any sort of DFS or betting golf weekly, you need to be on the team. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I mean, couldn't have said it better. I just love the BetSperts since we've joined there. They just continue to build new things into the database. So they're very committed to having the latest up there. Your model is pretty similar to mine as well. I think that's an interesting angle to go with the, customizing the mixed conditions of also difficult to gain in those areas. And I wouldn't have thought that Hoey would pop there because I think of Hoey as this opposite field maestro who's always in the mix at every resort course.
Yes.
But he's been sneaky the last couple weeks, so good for him. He still crossed me, and I haven't forgiven him yet for the ISCO championship last year.
Was that the Barbasol ISCO?
Oh yeah.
Okay, got it. The old Barbasol, now the ISCO. Yeah, Hoey will cross you, man. You got to be careful for Rico. He's not bad in Texas either. I think 11th at Houston, which was his best non-alternate field event of the season. In CJ Cup, he finished terrible, but I think he may have been first round leader. No, it was Scotty, but he was up there, very, very far up at the CJ Cup as well. Watch out for Hoey this week. Good stuff from the people over at BetSperts. All right, let's take a look at the odds. Let's bet some guys. All right, now bring it to the stage. That's slide number 2. Let's hit it back to slide 1, and you've got plus 250 for the boogeyman. King Scheffler going for the three-peat this week. Mr. Texas, Mr. Everything, number 1 player walking the planet Earth, Scotty Scheffler, 2.5 to 1. Gotta say, that's maybe the lowest price that I can remember. 3 to 1 a couple of weeks ago at the CJ Cup in a very similar field. It's a price. If you want to do it, if you made some money at the PGA, you're a casual, you want to get in, I can't fault you for that. He probably does hold about a 40% of the win equity this week. But then you got Berger, 20 to 1 right after him. Danny Berger still playing well. Tommy Fleetwood on start 155 on the PGA Tour now, still looking for that victory. 22 to 1, third favorite on the board. Of course, you got Jordan Spieth, who's won here at Colonial, a couple of runner-ups in his career as well at 22 to 1. Hideki Matsuyama, 28 to 1. Those are the 5 under 30 this week, John. You want to bet any of these guys this week?
Yeah, I mean, got to acknowledge the boogeyman on the card here. What do you do? This is the first time that I've ever done this, but I am betting the without Scotty Scheffler market this week.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the 2.5 to 1 favorite. I haven't felt as compelled by one single player. There've been other events this year where Scotty is like the favorite and playing really well, but there's also other guys playing really well, and I don't want to bet the without 3 or 4 guys that they offer because it's at that point what value is there.
Yeah.
I didn't hate what the numbers became when I went to the without Scotty market. Like you're showing Berger here, he is 20 on a lot of books. He's as good as like 25 on other books, but I can get a 20 on Berger in the without Scheffler market. So that's where I started my card. The other thing that's interesting about, because I think if you're not going to bet without Scheffler, you have to bet each ways on whoever else it is you're betting.
Right.
Because there's just no logical reason, seeing what Scheffler did the week after he won the Masters and picking up an RBC Heritage win too when he was expecting a kid with every distraction in the world. Seeing what he did at Texas 3 weeks ago in a homecoming that he should not have cared about and just tuned up at and just waxing the field anyway. Seeing what he's done every single year at this event in his hometown when he's done everything but win. So this is a win that he wants to get. And also like a pretty not super emotional hangover PGA Championship win. Like he kind of coasted and didn't have to stress it all that much. So like
he's got a track record of doing it. He did it last year after the Masters.
I have zero reason to, and I didn't even mention every Texas finish he's had. He won in Austin every single year. They had the match play there. Right. He wins the CJ Cup. Like he's going to win every event in Texas at some point in his career. Absolutely. Yeah, he's going to get the Texas Slam.
That's the only reason he's playing these, right? Because like, do you think he plays Memorial next week?
I sure hope so, because I've actually been saving him for Memorial and one and done. And because it's like a signature event, big purse, he always wins that one too.
Yeah,
I think he has to, but he's going to have to pick. I mean, he won't play the Canadian Open then, but I think he will. I think he will play Memorial.
Yeah,
which is nuts. And yeah, so for all those reasons, like I would rather bet the without Scotty market and just have a slightly less fun second place finisher if it ends up being that pays me well than rooting against the inevitable. You can't hand it to him. Like you could have a Davis Riley situation like last year where he did beat Scotty heads up. But I wouldn't expect that to happen. So I don't mind the value. I don't mind. There's only a select few players I actually really like at the top of the board this week, and I can fit them on a card. So, all of that preamble, I bet Berger and Fleetwood at 20-1 a piece.
Yeah. And then you get it's obviously without Scotty market. So I haven't made the decision. Typically, the books that I have down here in Florida and offshore don't open those up until Tuesday. So I'm kind of waiting to see what those numbers look like. I kind of don't feel like I'm going to get 20-1 in those markets after things settle in. So those seem like very good prices. But if I could, I'd absolutely be betting Dan Berger. I've been all over him all season long, starting with Phoenix. Had the close call at the Cognizant Classic, was on him last week, just playing so consistently right now, second in strokes gained total in the field over the last 24 and 30 rounds, sixth in approach, seventh in tee to green. He's got good history. He won this event at Colonial right after like COVID shut down the world, and it was like our first event back. He came to this event, won in a playoff, I think against Morikawa. Is that right?
Yep, that's right.
I think Morikawa missed a short putt. Daniel Berger has won this event before. I like him in the wins just because he has that low, predictable ball flight. Brock had a question here in the chat. Anyone you lean toward in terms of playing in high winds? One, John, do you see that in the forecast this week that they're going to be dealing with those conditions? And two, is there any players say just anywhere near the top of the board outside of these guys here that you think that's an advantage to that play better in that type of circumstances?
Yeah, I always just assume when we play in Texas, we're going to get wind. And it's almost like when you play at a coastal venue and it may not call for wind, but you get these gusts. It's just wind is a part of Texas golf. So yeah, I haven't seen it to the point where it's going to like threaten suspensions like it would at like Riviera where it's just blowing off the green. I don't know that it will get to that point because it is tree lined. more so than a lot of the other Texas venues. But suffice to say, you do need the guys who play well in wind. I'm going to proxy that for guys who just play well on the Texas swing, because again, that's just kind of go hand in hand. Berger won not only here but also at Pebble Beach, which was also a very important venue to navigate the wind at, and he kind of credited that after winning that, like, that was a big key to why he felt comfortable there. So when you back Berger, you feel good about him in the wind. This is a good course for him. We're on the same page there. I think a guy like maybe like a Robert McIntyre, is just known for kind of mudding it in the wind. He's one of the favorites up top here, but it really just flushers. Flushers survive the wind. If you're not hitting like an off center spinny ball, you can penetrate your ball through the wind. So it still goes back to ball striking this week.
Yep. Totally agree with you. Berger good. And all these guys up here are really good win players, actually, because, I mean, Spieth, I would say right now is probably the worst, but you look at his track record in Texas playing in high winds, and it's pretty good. Matsuyama has multiple wins in Hawaii. Fleetwood obviously has his victories on DP World Tour, and they're much more used to playing it low, dealing with those tough conditions. So I think all of these guys are suitable. Moving on to the next section of the odds board here, 30 to 50 range. Matt McNeely, Aaron Rye, JT Poston. I mentioned his week last week. Harris English nearly made my credit check as well. Had a really good low round of the day on Sunday. Win. Top 5 at a major. Harris English is trying to make a Ryder Cup team this year. Siwoo, awesome week as well. Siwoo, poor Siwoo, when he gets paired with Scotty Scheffler. It just doesn't seem to go well for him, and he seems to get kind of run out of the gym a little bit. But 35-1 on Siwoo, who's had some success in Texas and is playing really good golf. Bobby Mack, JJ Spawn, Brian Harmon, Davis Riley, defending champion at this event, who also had a T2 last week. Davis Riley. If Davis Riley, so there was the par 5 on the front. Davis Riley hit one, I think, in the water, and then had a putt maybe like 6 feet for bogey. Missed that putt, and he was so disappointed. He's going to like tap it in for double. I wouldn't say it's a tap in. It was like 3 feet, but he totally rushed it. He was totally frustrated because he wanted to birdie that par 5, and he was going to walk away with double. Missed the putt for double, made 8 on a par 5 on the front. And if he just made that double, he would have finished solo second at the PGA Championship. But all that said, big week for Davis Riley. Ben Griffin has been playing great too. If it was Scotty Scheffler wasn't in the field, like, these are good prices on all of these guys who are playing pretty good golf. Who do you like here?
Yeah, I did. Let me just make sure. Yeah, I did not bet anybody on this page, but I like Rye as a very good course fit. I think that's a short number for him. It gets even shorter in the without Scotty market. So I don't love him, but I do love like the Sedgefield overlap that you get here, and that's where Aaron Rye picked up his last win. He contended here, I remember 2 years ago. I think he finished T12, but he was right in the mix, and it was a year where they just let the greens completely bake out. I think it was probably the last year before they renovated it, so they just said, let this course die and kill these people with these just like brown and burnt out, baked out greens. And he was hitting great shots into the center of them that couldn't hold it. They kind of lost the course a little bit that year, but it's a great course fit for Rye. He will obviously be on my first round leader card. And JT Poston, the last time he finished runner up, which he did last week, last time he did that was at the Travelers the year. Who won that year? Was it? That wasn't the key. Was it the Keegan year? I can't remember.
I think so.
The last time he finished runner up, he won the next week at the John Deere. So he's a guy who can kind of parlay the form, hold on to it, and keep it going the following week. So those are probably my 2 favorite guys on this page.
Yeah, I think there's reason that you could make arguments for a lot of these guys. I think the price is a little bit short on Poston for me. I don't normally bet Brian Harmon, but my eyes are kind of drawn to him here off a win in Texas earlier in the season. Davis Riley, obviously playing good. I thought his press conference was great after Saturday, putting into perspective that he kind of got obsessed with perfecting the golf. Honestly, dude, when I saw him like a couple of years ago at the Valspar swing a golf club for really the first time I've really watched him in contention. I'm like, this guy's golf swing is perfect. The fact that he was obsessing over changing it boggles my mind because it's so smooth and sweet as it is. Number one in strokes gained total at Colonial Country Club over the last 6 seasons. Davis Riley could make a nice pick. Like I said, I'm going to kind of wait. I'm going to wait and see approach to see where these odds shake out when I get the without Scotty markets. But Riley, Harmon, English, Poston are the guys that I'm kind of circling the waters on right now in this sort of mid-range here. Bumping up to the next section of the odds board, Davis Thompson, Andrew Novak, both 55-1. Keith Mitchell at 60-1. Thornborn Olesen at 60-1 as well. Brock was asking about him in the wind, which I think is a nice little pick. Lucas Glover has been playing good golf at 60-1. Akshay 60. Harry Hall, Ryan Gerard, first round leader at the PGA Championship, 60-1. Matt Hughes nearly got it done in Myrtle Beach 2 weeks ago, 65. Mike Kim, Alex Smalley, Bud Cauley, Christian Bezadenhout, Eric Cole, Taylor Moore round out this section of the odds board. Anyone here, John, you like or don't like?
So I bet 4 guys this week. That'll be my card. Without Scheffler, it gets a little tight.
All without Scheffler?
Yeah. So I bet I started with Berger, Fleetwood, and I closed it with Glover and Michael Kim. The thing that I think is interesting, I don't usually chase trends, but this one I wrote a lot about in my preview this week. 9 of the last 10 winners of the Charles Schwab have posted a top 10 in one of their 3 prior starts to that win. 9 of the last 10 is a significant trend. And Davis Riley even checks that off as like, I couldn't think of anything to justify where that came from. And I look back and he finished T3 in his first time playing the course 2 years before he won it. So there's something about seeing this course down the stretch in contention, not quite getting it, and then having another chance and doing it. So that's a trend that both Glover and Michael Kim check. And when I look at the board, it's like Scheffler and Spieth have finished top 10 here before. Their numbers are very short for obvious reasons. I think Glover and Kim are in the best form of the other guys who check that box. And I wouldn't chalk it up to like a random top 10. Like I think they're both playing in good enough form and suit this course as like reliable ball strikers. That I think if that trend is going to continue and it's not Scheffler, I think the two of them have a good shot.
Yeah, Lucas Glover, awesome ball striker. I have him 9th in the field in terms of courses that are difficult to gain, both off the tee and on approach. So really solid stuff from Glover there. I definitely like him a lot. 60-1 is a great price on him. Ryan Gerard, intriguing to me a little bit because of the approach play, has been so solid, although I think he's, like to see him in the Southeast, not Texas, I think is more of a spot for him. And you're obviously paying for that bump of a lot of people hearing his name last week at the PGA Championship. Novak, Mitchell. Look, I think Keith Mitchell is so talented. Like, it just feels like he has to break through at some point. Like, he's 5th in my model in ball striking. He's 3rd in tee to green. It's really, really solid for such a long, extended period of time, which makes him unique in comparison to these other people on the board. Now, does he have wins? Absolutely not. He's got 3 first-round leaders, I think, this season, and he's been doing it more consistently than all these other guys. I've been burned so many times and have a trash can full of Keith Mitchell losing outright tickets. So still under some consideration, but I think 60-1 is a very good, like, reasonable price given this field. Bombs, 100-1 and above. There's a whole bevy of names here. This doesn't even include all of them. Some of those for you guys listening to the audio version. Tom Kim, Texas boy, 100-1, who's struggling. Ricky's 100-1. Tom Hoagie is 110. Sam Stevens is 110. Jake Knapp, 110. Nico Echeverria, 110. You start to get to 125 and guys like Doug Gim, Austin Eckroat, Michael Thorne Bjornsson, who has been really impressive of late, who I think has a really bright future and is starting to understand it and put himself into contention in moments. And Alejandro Tosti is back in Texas at 140-1. Any bombs for you this week, John, or is your card pretty much solidified?
Yeah, my card is locked up, but I just really I was Scheffler number one by a wide margin in my model, and the next two were Berger and Fleetwood, and I really felt good about that. So kind of concentrated after you shave off the points for without Scheffler market. That led me to a very tight card. Technically, if you're going to go the route I'm going in a without Scheffler market, actually makes a lot of these guys way more appealing because what's being priced into their numbers as long shots is their ability to close. If we get a situation like we just had last week where you're not playing for first anymore and you look at like a Davis Riley who was actually great down the stretch when it was like completely out of reach, like that could be a situation that presents itself once again this week. And then you feel a little bit better about a guy like a Toasty, a Hoey, or Bridgman, like all these guys who you would definitely question neck and neck with Scheffler. But if he builds a cushion, then all these guys become a lot more viable in those markets. So the guys I mentioned there, I think are very interesting. I always love a Gary Woodland flyer. So I'm there for that. I think I had already put a bet in on Zal, and then he withdrew like at like 9 a.m. this morning. So he had a long number this week in a homecoming at Dallas. Like I felt great about that. And then he withdrew. So he must be dealing with something too. But suffice to say, if you were taking advice from me, go to the without Scotty Scheffler market, hoist some bombs, and somebody is gonna, surprise it and be in the mix Sunday.
Fire away, baby. Seats 501. Can Glover get his putter back? I'll take it. Yeah, I think he can. Such a good ball striker, excuse me. And he has spike putting weeks. We've seen it from him before. He gained 5 strokes putting at Pebble Beach. He finished third. He gained over 3.5 putting at the Players Championship. He finished third. Signature event, Players Championship. He gained putting at the Valspar, finished 8th. The ball striking is so consistently good right now that if he has a good putting week, the likely end result is probably a top 10 floor here. So I think 60-1. Now, are you asking a lot for someone who's not been on a great streak of putting? He's lost 4 in a row, of course, but the 2 before that were 2 really good starts, and they were both top 8 finishes. Hasn't played as much golf as you would think this year, but he's better than you think with the putter, and I think this place is unique enough of a spot where with some history here, he could potentially get it back. Let me just look at how he's putted here historically.
Yeah, I was just pulling that up too. TGL champion Lucas Glover, by the way. And,
not a starter, but he still got the check. But yeah, it looks like last year 12th, he gained, what's that, 6.5 putting last year or so?
He's gained here in 2 of the last 3, and in those but he's finished T12 and T8 here 2 of the last 3 years. He's gained both of those times. I was just looking at his data golf page too, and although he hasn't been good this year, it's the best he's putted since 2019. So
there you go.
He's coming here.
Maybe we don't want his putter to go back.
If he's gained in years past, he has the potential this year. But yes,
all right, good stuff. My both of you will have the article out with obviously your final card, John. I will have my picks out on Wednesday as well. Both of us will continue to promote and put out content the rest of the week for the Charles Schwab Challenge. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention this that Joanne said early in the show. And I'll be honest, it's kind of like thrown me off a little bit all show because I've been thinking about it and it's super sad. And I don't know if this is true. So maybe I shouldn't post it. But my guy, James, who we've had on the show a couple of times, who's been going through stage 4 cancer, she said passed away. So thank you for letting me know that, Joanne. I am saddened by that. That's heartbreaking. I feel for his family. Thoughts and prayers, obviously, from myself and John and anyone at Preferred Lines for someone who has supported this show and been an awesome member of this sort of golf content community over the years. So we hope everything is okay and he's at peace and his family is doing all right in this time. So thanks for letting me know that, Joanne. DGen, man, that sucks. Tough to hear, but we'll continue to move on. We will have the show again next week. John, thank you again for being a part of the show this week. Wishing you guys all the best of luck for the Charles Schwab Challenge. We'll be back here. Memorial, Canadian Open, U.S. Open, Travelers. One heck of a 4-week run after this to kind of put a bow on the summer of golf. Cannot wait for Oakmont. Already seen some videos come out of there. John, what do you got the rest of the week? You got any closing words before we get out of here tonight?
Yeah. Like you said, like very sad news affects everybody in the industry. I wasn't aware of that either. So my hearts go out as well. For the rest of the week for me, you mentioned the lines.com. I did actually want to make a little bit of a housekeeping note. You may have noticed my articles have been posting from lineups.com. That's another site under the same Katina family that the Lines it lives under. Going forward, my articles are going to live on lineups.com, and the Lines will eventually get sunset. But all of the content remains the same. So did want to just call that out in case you notice any differences of where my articles are being posted. It's still the same business as usual, preview, sleepers, final bets, Discord remains the same, cadence remains the same, and all of that. So just wanted to clear that because I was getting a few questions on that. So you can still expect to see that tomorrow and Wednesday for final bets. And then, we'll be here every single Monday. So
that's right. Free of charge, as always, on the Everything You Need to Know course preview. It is the place that you should start every week. It's where I start. It's where everyone starts. Read that article. Give John a couple of clicks. Show him some love. Appreciate you all, as always, for checking out Preferred Lines this week. Like I mentioned, best of luck. Man, hug a family member. Life is short. Enjoy it. Let's win some bets along the way. We're doing this all for fun. Thank you all for supporting the show. A like, a subscribe to the YouTube channel goes a heck of a long way. I wish you all a great week. Have a good Monday night. We'll catch you next week. I'm out of here. Peace.